everybody, and welcome back to the Sports Card Show. Today we've got a video featuring the 10 most valuable baseball cards of all time. Now that's current as of right now, which is February of 2023, so I'll probably update this video every once in a while as the list changes sufficiently to warrant doing a new video. So if you've ever been curious to know what the most valuable cards in the world are, this is the video for you. We're going to go through each, and I'll tell you a little bit about each of the cards on this list. So with that, let's jump right in. Starting off at number 10 is the 1909 T206 Honus Wagner in a PSA 5. And one thing I'll note about this auction is that it occurred in 2016. So although this card appears as number 10 on this list, it very well may be, one of the top 1, 2, or 3 most valuable cards if it were to go to auction today, because the market for vintage cards has really exploded in the last, it has gone up significantly over time since 2016. In the last, probably couple of years, it's really gone, berserk. And even while the rest of the sports card industry, the modern sports card industry, has seen a pretty significant depreciation of values from the heights of 2020 and 2021, the vintage market really has not seen that at all. In fact, a lot of vintage, especially these pre-war cards and other cards around that time frame, have gone up, while the rest of the sports card market has dropped. So this card at number 10, valued at $3.192 million in 2016, is likely to be, a card that is worth much more if it were to be sold at auction today. A bit about the T206 Honus Wagner, which we're going to see a few times on this list. This card is generally thought to be the most famous and desirable baseball card, in the universe. It's an extremely rare card of which there are really only, a handful, maybe a few dozen copies in existence, for reasons that are difficult to know. There are sort of rumors that are not terribly well founded that Honus Wagner, didn't approve of tobacco use, and so, asked that his image not be distributed with cards that were sold in tobacco products, on the idea that, kids would be enticed to use tobacco, which he didn't agree with, allegedly. And so, his cards were pulled from these packs of cigarettes and tobacco that these cards came in. Now, that's not anything that really, I think, has a huge amount of evidence to support, but that's one theory that, has gone around for decades about why there are so few of these Honus Wagner cards. But Honus Wagner, one of the earliest members of the Baseball Hall of Fame, generally considered to be one of the greatest hitters of all time, and really a household name for anybody that, appreciates baseball in any way. And with a card so rare, of such a, important player, there's just, understandably a ton of value in these things. And they have, just consistently gone up over time, beginning in really the 1980s. These things went into, sort of tens to $100,000 territory. Now they're, you cannot get one for less than millions of dollars. And there are examples of this card that have like giant holes in them, or that, have all the four corners like cut off, and they still sell for, upwards of $1 million. So, very valuable card. This one is probably worth significantly more than $3.192 million, but, the prices we're using for this list are, sold prices. So we have to go by that. And even back in 2016, it's valued high enough to get number 10 on the list of most valuable baseball cards. Number 9 is a 1951 Bowman Mickey Mantle PSA 9 rookie card. This card is Mickey Mantle's true rookie card. A lot of people are familiar with his 1952 Topps card, which is a very iconic card that we will see in this list more than once. But his true rookie card, his first card on a pack distributed product, is this 1951 Bowman card. And I think this card is underappreciated. It generally sells for significantly less than the 52 Topps not because it is, less scarce, but really because the 52 Tops is sort of an iconic card that a lot of people are familiar with in the hobby, and therefore there's just more demand. And so, cards with more demand than supply will sell for more than cards with less demand to match supply. So this card was sold in December 3rd of 2022 for $3.192 million at memory lane auctions. All of these prices, I believe, include the fees that the auction houses charge to buyers. So the 3.192 is sort of an all-in price, but the strike price would be a little bit less than that, and the auction house adds a fee on top of that, which is how high-end sports card auction houses generally work, as do auctions in other areas like antiques and fine art and so forth. So number 8 is yet again another T206 Honus Wagner. This one is graded PSA 2, and the sale of this card was from May 24th, 2021 at Golden Auctions. This card, as you can see, has very prominent creases going horizontally across the face, and yet it is an extremely, valuable card despite that condition issue. This one is marked the 150/25, which is a designation on the back that can change from card to card. I'm actually not sure if Honus Wagners come in other variations other than that Sweet Capital 150/25. But if you know anything about pre-war cards and the T206, there's just a absolute ton of variety of different backs and different numberings on backs of these cards. So it's really, they call this set the monster because there's something like 800 cards that you would need to get a complete set of every variation of T206 cards from 1909. And so I'm not sure what variations the Wagner come in. My guess is it would only be that the same back is on all of them, is what I'm trying to say. So we will see some other Wagners yet, and there's the next one at number 7. This one is in a PSA 1.5 holder. The sale is from October of 2022, and this one has a pretty significant crease going vertically, including across the face area. And yet again, that doesn't stop this from being a multi-million-dollar card that any collector would, love to have in their collection. And so that's what commands these very high prices. This, I think, is the only modern card at number 6. This is a 2009 Bowman Chrome Draft Superfractor autograph of Mike Trout. So Mike Trout, of course, is the best player in baseball, almost sort of unanimously thought to be that. And his rookie cards are extremely valuable and collectible. The sort of cream of the crop is the 2009 first Bowman Chrome card of him, which featured him when he was still in the minor leagues. And this Superfractor here, which you can see if you look closely, has sort of a circular pattern / design on it. And that design is well known for modern sports card collectors because it indicates that this card is a one of one. There is only a single Superfractor of any card that comes in a Superfractor variations. There are other colored variations of this card, as well as just regular base versions of this card that you can get for less than this, but they're certainly not cheap. So this is the absolute best Mike Trout card, really, that you can buy. And it is his sort of pre-rookie from his minor league days. But these Bowman cards that feature players when they're still in the minor leagues all show them with their major league uniforms airbrushed onto them. So they're very popular amongst collectors of prospects and stars in the major leagues. And the Superfractor is really the one card to rule them all for any modern players that have autographed first Bowman cards in Bowman sets of different types. So there you go. That's the, I think, one and only modern card that we'll see in this list is a Mike Trout one of one autograph. Number 5 is the first appearance of Babe Ruth in this list. I think the only appearance of Babe Ruth in this list. This is a 1933 Goudey. This is another card that's very iconic It's very recognizable to collectors. Often this card, is used in sort of images in popular media that want to, kind of illustrate the hobby in, a few cards. They might show this one in a 52 Mantle. So it's very recognizable. Obviously, Babe Ruth, thought to be by many people the greatest player, baseball player of all time, and a Yankee legend, sort of legend of legends. So his stuff, has been going up significantly in the past several years, along with the rest of the elites of the vintage market, like Mickey Mantle and Willie Mays and Honus Wagner and Ty Cobb. This is a PSA 9. It's the highest graded example of this card. It was sold in July of 2021, and I suspect this card will be, in demand and highly desirable for a long time to come, as really one of the most famous Babe Ruth cards that there are, even though it's actually quite far from his rookie cards. So, and none of which appeared on this list, but I suspect that's because they just have not, the higher grade ones that would command the multi-million-dollar sales have not been sold recently, because frankly people are hanging on to those, and you see a lot more sales of cards like the Mantles and so forth, of which there are a greater supply and just a lot more sales to report on. Number 4 is a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle in PSA 9 condition. This one was sold in January of 2021 for $5.2 million. It's a private sale that was reported to Card Ladder, which I use for the information on sales. So that might have been from an auction house or some other place that reports data to Card Ladder, but it didn't specify where it was from, so I couldn't tell you exactly. But this is a $5.2 million sale of a mint copy of this Mickey Mantle. It should be noted that there are several PSA 10 copies of the 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle, none of which have been sold particularly recently, and so therefore none appear on this list. But there are cards, there are examples of this card that are even higher grade than this one, and one would have to think that they would sell for more than this one if sold today. So, we sort of watch the market and see what comes up for sale, and when, any of the PSA 10s of this card show up, or, any higher grade examples of the T206 Honus Wagner show up, they're going to appear on this list when they sell, because the market's very hot for this stuff right now, and there's just not a lot of sales of those super high-end premium copies of these key vintage baseball cards. Number 3 is another T206 Honus Wagner. This one is I have it as an SGC2, but it's actually a 3. And this one is a really nice copy because it doesn't have any, visible creasing. The corners are, they're round. At one point, those corners were sharp corners, 90-degree angles like, modern cards. But, most T206 cards have corners like this where they're extremely rounded, and this one is no exception. But the surface of this card and the lack of creases make for a very, nice appearance, and that gets a lot of attracts a lot of value in the sports card industry. So this one was sold relatively recently, kind of the last half of 2022, and so that means it's it's going for more. It's selling in a hotter market than some of the other T206 Wagners that we looked at that sold in 2021, or that first one that sold in 2016. Consequently, this one gets all the way up to number 3 at $6.6 million, sold at REA auctions in August of 2022. Number 2, yet again, another T206 Honus Wagner, and again, this one sold also in August of 2022, same time as the prior one, and it's a very clean example. There are some, kind of surface wear issues in the beautiful yellow background of this card, but other than that, very clean appearance, very well centered, and just the sort of rounded corners and light surface wear on the coloration of the front. So again, the late the more recent date of this sale means that it gets a higher price than some of the other T206 Wagners in this list. This one sold for $7.25 million. again in August of 2022 at Golden Auctions. And actually, I want to go back to the prior one because this one is graded SGC3, so it's actually a higher grade, and it's sold in the same month as the one that was number 2. But what you start to see is, well, first of all, there's a lot of randomness sometimes in auctions in that, if some multimillionaire decides they want to have a card in one auction, window, then they're going to bid that up more than perhaps, a card of lesser grade, in a different auction. So it's just sort of happenstance what the bidders are doing. But also, even though these cards have numerical grades, there are kind of, eye appeal issues that can push cards to be more valuable despite having a lower grade than another card. So if you look at this card, it's a little bit off center if you compare it to this one. And so maybe that, improvement in centering is what pushed the, second one over. I'll notice that you just look at the color of this one, and there's just no surface wear on it. That beautiful yellow background is quite amazing. So, this one could just be up to this difference between number 3 and number 2 here. Could just be, a matter of who the bidders were at the time of the auction. So with that, let's look at the most valuable card, baseball card, in the history of the hobby, and that is a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle. Now, interestingly enough, this card is actually graded by SGC, which is a rarity. Most collectors of higher-end cards will have them graded by PSA, with the idea that PSA generally has a price premium over a same-graded SGC example. Now, that sort of general rule has limitations because you've seen many cards in this list that are, well, not many, but you've seen several cards in this list that are SGC graded, namely those T206 Wagners. It for a long time, SGC was really the gold standard when it came to vintage grading, especially pre-war stuff, like those 1909 T206 Honus Wagners. It was generally thought to be preferable to have a card like that graded by SGC than PSA. Up until about maybe like 5 to 6 years ago, that started to change. And vintage collectors, many of whom were sort of new to vintage, coming over from the modern side of the hobby, had a strong respect for PSA, and consequently they wanted to have vintage cards that were graded by PSA, and the price reflected that increase in demand. So it's interesting that we see a SGC graded Topps Mickey Mantle 1952 card because, generally I think people would prefer to have this graded by PSA in current times. However, this card has some additional history than, the average 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle. This was part of the Rosen find, which happened in 1985. An investor / collector named Alan Rosen, known as Mr. Mint, who was a sort of regular at sports card conventions across the country in the 80s and 90s, buying up collections from people who were interested in selling large quantities of their cards to him for him to resell to his network. He found a sort of hoard of 1952 Topps cards in 1985, which included many Mickey Mantles. And this card here, as evidenced by a letter held by the owner of this, or the seller of this card, from Alan Rosen, indicated that of all the cards that Alan Rosen bought in that 1985 find, this card was the finest example of the Mantles. And so this one really is thought to be the best Mickey Mantle card out there, regardless of who graded it or when it was graded. And that's why this one commanded the astounding price of $12.6 million in August of 2022. A lot of these results are from August of 2022, so that was really a hot year for buying, huge cards. And again, in August of 2022, the greater sports card industry was very much depreciated. A lot of values of, modern cards were down 50% from their highs of 2021 and before. So for a card like this, and those other T206s, Honus Wagners that sold in August of 2022, is really quite amazing, and it shows the the sort of appeal and attractiveness of the vintage sports card market to the collecting public. So take from that what you will. I hope you enjoyed this video and this list of cards. It's always fun to see these big dollar sales, and I hope to do this again. I'll also be doing videos on the top 10 most expensive basketball cards, football cards, hockey cards, and maybe we'll even do non-sports cards. So stay tuned. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye now.